Hello everyone, welcome to the Rundown. Thanks to AGL for all your energy needs. Go to agl.com.au. The band is back together. Ryan Daniels from 7 News, he loves Derby Week. And Andrew Embley, Premiership player and Norm Smith medalist, join us. We're excited. It's the Ryan Turnbull tribute match.
50s.
Derby 50.
Derby 50.
Can you believe it?
Come a long way since 1995.
What a build-up to it, hey?
Can I just ask you, we're going to talk about your Norm Smith medalist. We're going to get our Glendinning Allen medalist a little bit later, our prediction. Did you pull one off? Have you won a Glendinning Allen medal?
No, I just played well in the big games. So, unfortunately for me, didn't get close to playing well in derbies.
Nice work by you. Hey, thanks to AGL for all your energy needs. Go to agl.com.au. And may I say straight off the top, Ryan Daniels, the parents contacted me during the week, Vovi and Papa Gossage, to tell me they have made the switch to AGL and are very happy. That is a fact. They have done a deal with AGL. So if you're out there and an Eagles fan, an Eagles member, you're watching this on Facebook or wherever you're watching on the socials, get to AGL and tell them the West Coast Eagles sent you, and I'm sure they'll look after you. Let's get our attention to last week. Just cast it back really quickly. Gutsy win.
Yeah, that's the word I was going to use, gutsy. And they played the conditions really well. We saw early in the year when it was pouring down at Optus Stadium against Port Adelaide, and West Coast tried to play their usual brand of footy. It did not work. I reckon they learned some lessons out of that game, and playing a few games in the wet this year has probably helped them in that Hawthorn game. They just tried to get it forward at any cost. They played the lineup that was the right lineup. They kept Jared Cameron in the team. They kept Rioli. They got Rioli back in the team. They had Ryan in the team. And that's what you need. You need runners, you need crummers, and it worked.
They found a way, didn't they? They weren't at their absolute best, and the conditions probably suited more Hawthorn than West Coast. But when push came to shove, in the last quarter, their big guns stood up. And Luke Shuey was outstanding. Darling's 5 goals were really good. And they just found a way to get the job done. And at this time of the year, when the competition is so easy, banking wins is crucial.
And ugly wins. Like, that's what the really good teams do. And you often see it in the year when a team has won a flag, and in the second year, it's the ugly games that decide how far they will go in September. This was an ugly win, but it's a win, and it's 4 points, and they're the ones they have to get.
So let's talk about the best player then from the game last week. Luke Shuey's last quarter was outstanding, and I went on Twitter and was pretty strong to say, I thought Adam Simpson laid down the challenge to the midfielders, boys. At three-quarter time, he said that they'd been beaten. Thoughts?
No, Luke Shuey was clearly the best player. I saw your reaction, and I know you got bombarded on Twitter for it, but Shuey was fantastic. I know the stakes weren't as high as the grand final, that's obvious, but his game was just as good on a stage that was important for that team to win that game. He had 39 disposals, 20 of them contested, 11 clearances, 11 inside 50s, 9 tackles. From an inside mid, which he became that day because of Nick Natanui, he was outstanding. And I was at that game, and the way that you could tell he was the best player, you looked up at the centre clearances after each goal, and you couldn't even see his number on his Guernsey. It was covered in mud, and almost every other midfielder was clean as a whistle on both teams. So he was doing the hard work, and he was getting them out of the middle. He won them that game.
He was big, massive, but you cannot underestimate in those conditions what Jack Darling did. 5 goals in the wet. For mine, Darling's performance, 5 goals in the wet. Like, you can find the football. And yes, Shuey found a lot of the football, and he was brilliant. Don't get me wrong, he was very good. His clearance work, in particular that last quarter. But Frawley was doing a really good job on JK.
He did.
And someone had to stand up and kick goals. And normally in those conditions, it's the small forwards that might get 2 or 3. It was a Wayne Carey-like performance from Jack Darling. 5 goals was massive in those conditions. He showed glimpses of the King, and the King was back. I thought he was big. And for mine, I thought Jack Darling was the most influential person on the ground.
Wayne Carey-like. Two or three of those goals were over the back in the goal square.
We love the ones over the back.
He never got those. Jack was fantastic. He was the best forward on the day, and the conditions were tough. But typically, that is Jack. He's a bit of a hybrid big, isn't he? He can play the ball really well when it hits the ground, and he's clever at getting the over-the-back ones. But he's not Wayne Carey.
5 goals in a game of 20 goals, and when Hawthorn didn't have a multiple goal kicker, Jack Darling was superb.
I cannot believe I'm outnumbered here. This is stunning. Can we go back and get some Luke Shuey highlights and run them over this entire segment and make sure that people understand how good he was?
Had to make up for a disappointing opening 3 quarters. Hey, Luke Shuey and Elliot Yeo as a combination. Now, Yeo didn't have his best game last week, but let's open it up there. Let's talk about the best midfield combos, the best 2-man combo in the competition. Where do they rate? Are they in your top 3? Embers?
I think at the moment, they are as good as any combination in the competition. I think Dangerfield and Kelly are pretty good, but what I like about Shuey and Yo is they really accommodate each other really well. Shuey's work around the contest at the moment, his clearance work is outstanding, but what Yo is doing, his pressure, so his ability to be able to lay tackles, put pressure on, nullify some of the bigger bodied midfielders of the opposition, and I think together they are working extremely well, and they're both in really, really good form.
Okay, so who have you got? Who's your top 3 combos if you've had
Okay, so Dangerfield Kelly, I think.
At 1?
I'd say at the moment, to be honest with you, I think Shuey and Yo right now are probably the best combination in the competition.
Above
Kelly and Dangerfield at a close 2. And the third one, I'd say Canelio Kelly from GWS.
Yeah, my order is top 3 is the same, but it's all over the shop. So I've got Kelly and Canelio at number 1. I've got Kelly and Dangerfield at number 2, and then I've got Shuey and Yo, with apologies to Fife Walters, and then Neil Zorko rounding out my top 5. But look, I can see what you're saying, Shuey and Yo, and they've particularly this year become a bit of a yin and a yang. Like you've got the big body, the tackler, the hard inside guy, and Shuey, the finesse, who can also go inside and win a clearance. So that it really is the best, probably 2-man midfield combo the Eagles have had in probably 10 to 15 years, really, when we look back on it.
At their very best, I agree with you. I think Yo and Shuey, but I actually didn't have Dangerfield as that combo with Tim Kelly. I had Mitch Duncan with him, to be honest, because I think Kelly, there's a fair rotation going through there. I think the Crouch brothers do awesome stuff, but they don't score, they don't hit the scoreboard enough. And I do have Neil and Zorko right up here as
Probably
well.
the best combination, as you said, before Judd and Embley.
Yeah. I meant Jed Fletcher and Andrew.
Sorry, keep going.
Parcels keeps wrapping himself up. Parcels, Embley. Can I just ask you now that Aaron Sandlands is back, hasn't played for a year. Nick Nainui's just got a taste. He's back, of course, and made an impact last week against the Hawks. Let's talk about Sandland's inclusion, and let's talk about, does it change the way West Coast go about their business, and in particular, Ryan, the way Nick Nat goes about his business?
Well, it has to. I mean, Aaron Sandlands is a dominant stoppage player. He knows where to hit the ball. Him and Nat Fyfe have had a great relationship over the years. It's almost as good as the Naitanui-Shuey combination that we've seen. So it's going to be a fascinating contest because both guys are underdone. I mean, Sandlands hasn't played in more than a year, not even any waffle games. Nick Nat's had the waffle game and then he's also played that game against Hawthorn. So you'd think he'd be slightly ahead in terms of being game ready. But I was at training the other day, at Docker's training, and Sandlands was doing everything that you'd expect him to do. He looked fantastic. He had the socks pulled right up. He knows that he's got maybe 6 or 7 weeks of footy left in him, and he's going to give it a red-hot crack. So it will change what West Coast have to do around those stoppages. They can't just assume they're going to get first hands on it every time, like they would have if it hadn't been him and it had been Sean Darcy.
Yeah, the dynamics change for sure. When Nick Nat is out there, 9 times out of 10, he's going to win most of the taps, and therefore you can get on the fly. You can start to actually be really proactive around the contest. But with Sandlands there, as you said, Sandlands is going to win his fair share. So West Coast are going to have to really watch what Pfeiffer's doing, watch what Michael Walters does around the contest to really nullify the influence that those guys have, in particular when I expect that Sandlands probably will win the majority of the taps.
Yeah, a question without notice here is the fact is, if it's wet and they throw the ball up in the middle, does that change the centre bounces as well? I think that brings Sandlands into it because you know the bounce is going to go, the throw up's going to go straight up. Sandlands will cross the line and try and block the effort of Naitanui. I think that's significant if it's a wet night.
It is, because Naitanui thrives on unpredictability, particularly in the middle, because he can get to the weird ones.
Yes.
Whereas Aaron Sandlands, if it's going straight up in the air, he's such a gigantic man. It's going to be very, very hard to nullify that. So, yeah, I think that will have an impact.
Speaking of weird ones, let's go and try and recruit a Fremantle Docker to the West Coast Eagles. If you could cherry pick a Fremantle Docker to put in your team, Ryan, who would you pick?
Well, I mean, the obvious two that jump off the page are Fife and Walters. It would be easy to pick those two guys.
Too obvious.
I've decided to remove them from my equation and try to think a little bit deeper. A guy who there's been a lot of talk about this week about whether he wants to be at Fremantle next year or not, and someone I think that West Coast really could use on the opposite wing to Andrew Gaff is Bradley Hill. I like his run and carry. I think he plays Optus Stadium really, really well. He's got premiership experience and he fits their age mould. They're in a premiership mode right now, so I think Bradley Hill would be a fantastic addition to the West Coast Eagles. I'm not saying he's going to go there. That's not some sort of tip-off. It just says that if they were trying to pick up one Docker and it's not Fife or Walters, for me, it's Bradley Hill.
I just don't know why we wouldn't choose Fife or Walters. They are clearly the two best players in the team. West Coast are a huge premiership window open right now. Their chances of going back-to-back are as good as any West Coast team has had for a long time. I think they are setting themselves for it. So, therefore, why wouldn't you get the best players in the competition into their team right now? So, for mine, it's actually probably Michael Walters. I think he's in career best form. what I like about him, he's a goal kicker and he can come through the midfield. So you can push him forward. Imagine a forward line with Michael Walters, Liam Ryan and Willie Rioli. Oh, that is very exciting for mine.
I really wanted to pick Walters because I was going to say with Fife, out of almost every team in the comp, the Eagles need him least to it because Yo is almost Fife. He's so close to that spot. And I really would have liked to pick Walters.
Okay, we all think West Coast will win. We agree on that? Glendinning Allen medalist and why, Embers?
Well, I'm going to go for Ryan's mate Luke Shuey. He was massive last week. He's probably the best midfielder in the competition right now. He's in some really good form. His clearance work's outstanding. I think Fife and Yo will go head to head, and I think they might just nullify each other. And I think Luke Shuey from mine is the player that steps up and wins the medal again.
I tend to agree with that. No,
you blokes are so predictable and so safe. It is so boring.
Well, the safe option would have been to go Shannon Hearn because he's won 3 of the last 4.
Hang on, I better scrub that out then.
Well, I just think momentum matters, form matters. Luke Shuey is in blistering form. He's got Nick Nat hitting the ball down to him now. He's coming off his best game of the season. And he's never won a Ross Glendinning medal, which I was quite surprised about. Sorry, Glendinning Allen medal. And I think it'll be his this weekend.
Who?
His, Luke Shuey's.
You gone both Luke Shuey?
Yes.
Brad Shepherd for mine. For the backman out there, I think Brad Shepherd will have a job and I think he'll do it. And if he plays on Walters or plays on a dangerous forward, I think Brad Shepherd will... depends on who votes for it. That's always interesting. I'd be interested to know who...
Are you getting a vote this weekend?
No, I voted once on it and didn't have the winner in my top 3. So I'm staying right out of it. Hey, thanks for watching. It's good to be back. Thanks to AGL for all your energy needs. Well done, Ryan. Thanks to Embers. Have a great derby. It is, of course, Saturday night at Optus Stadium. This has been the rundown for AGL.com.au.